See, I've been waiting. Waiting on that time. Feel me if you've been waiting on yours. That moment, it's close. It's close.
Welcome back, everybody, to the premier MMA and boxing combat sports podcast in the world. My name is Joe Gilpin, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jesse Rivas. How you doing this week, Jesse?
Doing great. I have been 100% into the hype of what's going on this weekend and still riding the wave from last week. This is a big week. A lot of big things happening, and I cannot wait to talk about it.
Big week in boxing. MMA is going to take a backseat this week. That's unfortunate. We can say now it looks like Dillian versus Demetrius Johnson is off. That's pretty much the only MMA news we're going to talk about this week, I feel like. You know what I mean? Everything else is boxing. So much is going on with boxing, especially in this heavyweight division. Mr. Jesse Rivas, did you see Dillian Whyte take Lucas Browne's soul this weekend?
Yes, I absolutely did. And I remember that going into this fight, it was like very hyped. People said 2-1 favorite, Dillian Whyte. He performed like he was an 11-1 favorite.
It was unbelievable. He performed at that championship caliber level. We talked about him last week as a guy who's kind of outside looking in when it comes to the elite of the elite, but he put a stamp with a knockout of the year contender. Big hook, puts Lucas Browne down. This is one of the all-time heavyweight knockouts. This is an amazing knockout.
I loved everything about this fight. I loved the way that it started. The way that it started, you had, even the entrances were hyped. You had Australia versus the UK, a big rivalry ever since, it became a prison colony. And then you had Dillian Whyte come out to his new trademark song, Back in Black, which has been his song ever since he lost to Anthony Joshua. So just to hear the crowd roar, him come out there, look like he was out of the movie Gladiator, and then come out with such an impressive victory after always being a banana to Anthony Joshua and getting the support of the people. He's basically anyone who hates Anthony Joshua, he's their favorite fighter right now.
He is the CM Punk to Anthony Joshua's John Cena.
The first time they fought was even a testament of how low people thought of him in the UK. So they thought he was a good fighter, but they thought he was a stepping stone. They put him in there. It was the perfect battle. Beauty versus the Beast. Anthony Joshua, a dime piece of a man. Dillian Whyte.
Okay, whoa. Are we letting dime piece of a man just, fly by the wayside? Okay, continue.
He looks like an Adonis. He looks like a superstar.
Listen, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just arguing the phrasing, I guess. I think there's better ways to put it than he's a dime piece of a guy.
It's like Jada has said, there's a hood and there's the ghetto. Now, Anthony Joshua, he comes from the hood. Dillian Whyte comes from the ghetto. That's a whole different level of poverty. So to see them go at it, there was AJ can cross over. He can make it to the burbs. He can make it to, your household. Dillian Whyte can never cross over. He will always be viewed as like that hood, nasty guy. So when they fought the first time, it was a great clash of styles. And I love the fact that now he cemented himself at a higher echelon, where now he could potentially have that rematch, and it'll be more of a 60-40 instead of like a 80-20 as it was at the time.
Dillian, he's definitely been one of Anthony Joshua's biggest tests in his career. We're going to talk a ton about Joshua later, obviously, when we get into our preview. But Dillian Whyte is now going to be looking for a big fight in this heavyweight division. Where do you see him in the pecking order at heavyweight? And is there a name that kind of draws you in as a potential next opponent?
Well, he called out Joshua and he called off.
Good luck with that. It's not going to be. It won't be Joshua. It won't be Joshua, right?
Yeah, but what's happened is the fact that there's a political game in boxing right now that's happening, and this was great for Eddie Hearn, who's the manager of Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua, because Wilder and Dominic Breazeale are both with Al Heyman. And guess what? So Al Heyman has a guy who has a mandatory fight supposed to come up for that same belt that Dillian Whyte just qualified for as number one contender. So, what they wanted to do was push Breazeale or Whyte to get one of these fights before the big Wilder versus Joshua fight. If I'm getting too confusing, please stop me.
I mean, I'm pretty high, so I'm already lost, but yeah.
Now with Dillian Whyte's big win, Al Heyman can stick in Dominic Breazeale to kind of buffer Whyte, clearing the path for Joshua versus Wilder BNX.
I get it. When your boy is facing off with, somebody else, sometimes you got to fight his side man. I get it.
Yes. So, Breazeale versus...
I have done that, by the way. I have done that, by the way. Like, had to, like, face off with somebody's, like, friend, because our boys are both beefing. And it's always just this feeling of, like, listen, I bet you're a really nice guy. There's no animosity here. We're just gonna, like, fuck around for a minute until they figure out their shit. It's a very bro moment every time.
But you still got Pulev out there. Pulev never had his fight, and he had to pull out because of an injury, not because of roids. So he still has a claim to fight Dillian Whyte to be the mandatory of the winner of Joshua versus Wilder, if that happens next.
So are you liking Dillian versus Pulev next? Who do you like? What do you want to see?
I think that's the correct fight, but Breazeale has been looking good ever since he lost to Joshua. He fought Joshua in 18 fights, so he wasn't in his prime. His last couple of showings, he looks like a definite contender.
Yeah, he's been looking really, really good. I was very impressed with his last fight.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff happening in this heavyweight division. Lucas Brown, are we going to really be seeing him again? What's next on the chopping block for a guy like Lucas Brown, who's a very tough guy? Former Australian heavyweight champion. He has MMA experience as well. Is he going to go back to MMA? I think I would like to see that as well.
Correction, my friend. He's a former world champion from Australia.
Oh, my mistake.
Australian heavyweight champion.
My mistake.
So, he's accomplished a shit ton for turning pro at 30 as an MMA fighter and a boxer at the same time. He didn't take the sport of boxing seriously until he was 33. He's 38 now. That's accomplishing a lot in a short period of time. He's the Batista of boxing, but he's 38. He's 38 years old, and I think that, this is not a sport where you linger on too long, especially at heavyweight at that age. So I think he should retire and enjoy maybe make a movie on his life.
Hey, man, I'd be into that.
Australian heavyweight champion.
I say go for it, and yeah, after that, you take that knockout loss, when you're breathing down 40, that's tough. That's really tough to come back from.
Here's a similar story as Batista, too. For those that don't know, Batista didn't turn pro 30s, and then became one of the biggest stars of professional wrestling. Same story as Batista.
Very similar.
Why in his 20s he didn't turn pro is because he was too busy being a bouncer at the top clubs in Australia, with Batista in DC, and sleeping with all the hottest women in the city. So, I mean, you're just too busy doing that than to go pro. But then in your 30s, you start having those questioning your lives, thinking about where you're going to go in your life. So then you start deciding, hey, maybe I should do that stuff I meant to do in my 20s.
What am I going to do? Fuck sluts forever? Oh, yeah, I am. And then you just forget about it until you're like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely watch that movie, especially the part about fucking sluts. That would be great. Let's make that movie. Let's make porn, is what I'm saying.
Porno.
Yeah, let's make porn.
The prequel's a porno. The sequel is an actual epic movie.
Yeah, it's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Anything else about this fight, or do you want to move along?
I think we can move along.
Let's get into some special topics. I mean, the boxing world is... there's a little anxiety in the air, in the psychosphere for boxing right now. And I think it's all around this Canelo Triple G fight. Canelo has tested positive for clenbuterol twice, it turns out, not just once. He tested positive twice. Apparently the second test is from earlier and had slightly higher levels of clenbuterol. Interesting, right?
Now the debate is, and I was hearing a little bit about this, is the fact that they're doing an investigation to see, was it that he had the meat, or is it high enough, is it elevated enough where it was a competitive edge? So I'm not sure what that line is, but that's what the investigation is, because trace amounts does not increase your performance. But, the reason trace amounts are important is because it means you're coming off a cycle.
Right.
But if it's higher than the levels that would have been elevated due to the consumption of the meat, then it's a definite suspension and the fight's off.
How are they going to test for this? I mean, I guess if you're saying it's just in this Mexican beef, you would need to literally go just test a bunch of Mexican people, right? Like, is everybody in Mexico on clenbuterol? How amazing is Mexico going to be in the 2020 Olympics? Jesus.
You know what though? It's a blessing in disguise for Boo Boo Andrade, because he's already preparing. He's already going through VADA testing. He's already prepared ever since he heard the news that this is happening. He says he's always in shape, so he's already started going through the necessary means to be the replacement on May 5th. He's signed to HBO. He's got a 3-fight deal. I mean, it's a no-brainer for everyone involved. I mean, he's not a big name, but he's a hell of a champion. Well, he's a hell of a fighter who could potentially pull an upset.
I mean, it's easy to call him a champion. I could easily see Boo Boo Andrade, scratching off one of these, maybe not the bigger titles, but he could definitely be, a champion somewhere. If that Hasidic Jewish kid from a couple of years ago could be a world champion, listen, it's a heavy list. Triple G, I think, needs to start being very careful, because for the first time this week, I'm starting to get 1% nervous about this, because now Canelo is going to go in front of a board, and we've never seen a fight this big really in this much danger. And if Triple G's not careful, he's going to talk himself into the loss of a payday.
There was a big fight one time where it was a lot of hype. We all thought it was going to happen, and then it just vanished into nothingness. Do you remember Mayweather versus De La Hoya too?
Oh, shit. Yeah, I remember chirping of that, and then it just fucking fell apart.
It was supposed to happen. I mean, it was scheduled. Everything was going on, and it just faded into nothingness. And there's a couple of different situations like that I can think where big fights have faded into nothingness. I can't think of many of those besides maybe Ferguson versus Khabib in MMA. But I've seen that happen a few times in boxing, so it would have surprised me, but I mean, it's been quite some time since I've seen.
How often is the Nevada Commission going to step in and stop a Canelo fight? Canelo being the money man in boxing right now. You only have to look back to when Floyd Mayweather got his jail sentence moved back so he could fight in Vegas. They always take care of the golden goose.
Yeah, speaking of golden goose, though, there's a golden goose that's fell from grace, Adrian Broner, and a future one, Gervonta Davis, who were part of a rant by Jermall Charlo. Did you catch the rant?
I did. I also caught that segue, which was fucking nice. And Charlo, before that interview, caught a little bit of cocaine, I'm guessing, having watched it.
Is that what you think happened?
Allegedly. Yeah, he was on something. He was hopped up, or he's getting punch drunk before his time. I mean, that was not a sober interview by the young Charlo.
And Gervonta Davis got upset that he got bumped by Charlo. Charlo's match got rescheduled and got put on the Broner card. And, there's a little prima donna ego thing going on between all of them. And, I mean, Charlo said it himself, in a real fight, he beat both of them on the same night. And just because of the weight class difference, I believe it.
Yeah, right. That's the weird part here. None of these three guys in any combination could ever fight each other. I don't know why this is the feud they're picking. One is like a 120-something pound, 130-pounder. Adrian Broner's into the 140s now. Charlo's up around 150s. What are we doing? What is this? Why are we bothering?
Yeah, everyone's like 20 pounds apart from each other.
I don't get it. Gervonta's been in the news a little bit, and I keep hearing people say, like, this is a can't-miss star. This is a can't-miss star. I do not necessarily agree with that opinion after all the bullshit around that one Mayweather, fight he had on the Mayweather-McGregor undercard, which was a total nightmare. And Adrian Broner, I have no idea what's going on with this guy anymore. So Charlo is picking weird targets in the boxing world to take his frustration out on.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It went viral, so I think it did its job. But it didn't set up anything that would make him actual money. But I think that's part of it. I think he's building his brand. He's the Lions only Charlo, so he's the wild, crazy, pops off the mouth Charlo, and I appreciate that.
Excuse me, sir. Hashtag Lions only, please. Thank you very much. Was he loaded? Do you think he?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he was on something. He's from Texas. You know, he's crazy. I wouldn't surprise me.
There you go.
The reason I say Texas is because if you hear the hip hop from Texas, you can tell they enjoy their combination of drugs. Let's remember, Chopped and Screwed came from Texas.
Oof. Yeah, there's been some Houston Houston hip hop reps hard, and I respect it. Did you see Gary Tonin MMA debut?
Let me make that clear. That's not that I'm saying that Houston hip hop sucks. I'm saying that the beats are made to be enjoyed while you're under the influence of specific drugs. That's where I'm going with that.
I think they agree.
But it's made specifically. Thank you. So we had some hip hop. I mean, we had hip hop. We had an MMA debut of Gary Tonin. What did you think?
I think Gary Tonin, he dropped his new mixtape, and it was hot fire. It was a decent fight. I thought it was a little sloppy and mechanical. Gary Tonin, for those of you that don't know, he is a new super prospect in MMA. I believe this fight is at 155 pounds. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He is an Abu Dhabi bronze medalist, which, you know, Abu Dhabi, enough said, those are the best grapplers in the world. He is feared in the jiu-jitsu world for his leg lock game, for he's part of this New York club, the Danaher Death Squad. He's one of the founding members of that. This guy has top shelf of top shelf Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm very excited to see him. But this was sloppy, a little mechanical. He's getting used to it. He's getting his feet wet, and he did his job, got the stoppage.
Great. I mean, I can't wait to see him do big things. He's a young kid. He's won all these tournaments. A lot of times these BJJ stars don't actually translate to MMA, but, I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about him, so I look forward to seeing his improvement. We also had, you know, he's nothing but class, he's nothing but skill and fantastic and a great representative of the sport. We saw a negative representation of the sport go viral on Twitter. Did you see the Drew Chapman moonsault off Irwin's Ayala?
Yeah, he went full-on fucking Jeff Hardy at LFA, and it was obviously wildly disrespectful. It was wildly stupid, but it does bring up an interesting question, Mr. Jesse Rivas. They have overturned this win to, I believe, a disqualification loss now for Drew Chapman. Should they be able to overturn a fight, the result, after the fight is over? So because of actions taken after the referee has waved off the fight. It's
a line. It's a great, because here's the thing. You don't want this to be a norm in the sport. I mean, I do think they should have suspended him. I do think that they should turn it into a no contest, especially because it was a pretty BS knockout. Did you see the knockout?
I did. It was a super arguable stoppage, yeah. You don't love that.
Yeah, it was like, you know, he got taken down, and when the guy took him down, he knocked himself out on the dude's knee. So it was like a very fluke. It was very a Norman Smiley type ending. It was a very Liam Smith type ending. You know, it was like a lot of luck was involved in there. It wasn't necessarily skill. Then he gets on the guy's back, and he does a backflip. I will tell you this. This went viral. People were hitting me up. Hey, did you watch the UFC tonight? And I was like, I swear to God, there was no UFC tonight. I follow the sport very closely. And then I had informed them it was a minor league called LFA. But now we know LFA. He should have got a bonus. You get the $50 fight of the night bonus.
Yeah, any fine that guy gets should immediately be paid by LFA. Any fine that guy gets.
But he shouldn't have a loss.
I don't think it should be a loss. I don't even think it should be a no contest, actually. I think the commission should step in and put forward a very serious suspension for it. Because if for nothing else, it's wild disregard of your opponent's health. It's dangerous to do that. Actually, I'll one-up you. That's assault. That is that is legally assault. You have signed a contract that when you're fighting, this is okay. As soon as the fight is over, you can't keep punching or, you know, doing damage to this person. That he assaulted him, if you want to go by the legal definition.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should get arrested, obviously, but, you know, don't do crimes in front of cameras, I guess is my point.
From the minor leagues of MMA, we move on to the biggest stage in boxing. 78,000 tickets sold for the first time in boxing history. 2 defeated heavyweights will meet to unify the belts. I'm talking about New Zealand's own Joseph Parker versus the UK, you know, the champion of all, the way he's been called, Anthony Joshua. How do you see this fight? This is fantastic. I'm excited. You know why I'm particularly excited? Because we talked about both of these guys when they were prospects on the show. Now they're unifying the belts. How do you feel about this fight?
I feel incredible about this fight. This is one of the fights that coming into the year I was super excited for. Anthony Joshua has shown himself to be the class of the sport. Heavyweight champion coming off a big knockout win in one of the best heavyweight fights of the last however many years. Take your goddamn pick. The win over Vladimir Klitschko, which was a star-making performance. And Joseph Parker is this guy over to the side who is so ready for that moment, and he's so skilled and he's so prepared for this. Coming out of New Zealand, you feel like this guy is being buoyed by the country of New Zealand, who just wants their heavyweight champion. It's such an incredible fight. I think, do both of these guys have 100% knockout rates?
I don't believe so, because I know that Parker went to 2 decisions.
Oh, Parker, yeah. Parker does have a couple of decisions. But goddamn, it's hard for me to see these two in here and not think somebody is hitting the mat.
You know, the crazy thing when I look at this is, if you really look at it, Joseph Parker is 2 years younger than Anthony Joshua. Joseph Parker is in the exact same place. If you look at the resume down the line, and then you look at Joshua down the line, he's in the exact same place where Anthony Joshua was last year before his Klitschko fight.
That's interesting. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Okay, so they both start off their career in the same way. They started off with the Randy Orton route. They were the legend killers. They killed every legend from that's 40 and above. So nobody relevant, but 40 and above. Then they moved on to prospects. I mean, you had, Dillian Whyte versus Anthony Joshua. He was really pushing that fight. He looked mortal at times, and you did question where he could move on. Joseph Parker had the same thing. He had the same thing with Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury, who's a top contender and is going to be a big star in this division for a long time, he pushed them, and they had a very competitive fight. When it came to winning the title, they had very easy routes to the title. Anthony Joshua fought against Charles Martin, who won the title by accident. In no way was he a world heavyweight contender, but he happened to be at the right place at the right time. Joseph Parker won the title from Andy Ruiz, who looks like Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian. So, not saying that either one of those guys, I mean, they came with undefeated records.
They're not fat, they're fluffy. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, they're not the best fighters, but, they were pushed very... Here, now we're talking exactly like we were when Anthony Joshua was coming off of his Dillian Whyte fight. Is he going to be the next big star? And if you measure how they performed against the mutual opponent, Carlos Takam, I think you got a hell of a fight in your hands. Takam pushed Joshua as hard as he possibly could, and he did the same thing with Poulet, and then ended up losing those fights one by a definite knockout and one by a questionable knockout. But with Joseph Parker won a very decisive, controlled decision over Takam. So I think if you look at that math, we're seeing a very close fight.
It's been said that as fights go on, AJ kind of has a tendency to maybe not gas, but fade slightly. We've seen that from time to time. Not that he hasn't been able to close out fights in amazing fashion, but we do see with his physique, he's carrying around so much muscle. That gas tank is gonna wear down a little faster than most people. Do you think Joseph Parker has the defensive skills to drag it to that deeper water?
I think both of these guys get hit way more than I'm comfortable with them getting hit.
Agreed.
I think that here's one thing that I don't know if it's overlooked, but do you think Joshua's being overhyped going into this fight?
Actually, if I could be honest with you, I was looking through fights this week trying to scout for this. I do think he's overhyped for this, and I think Deontay Wilder has a very good path to beating Anthony Joshua if those two ever finally step in the ring.
I mean, if we go even from his Olympic gold to even his just his regular pro career, he's had a couple of gifts.
It's a couple things like maybe how we would talk about Canelo before the Triple G fight, where the Triple G fight was a very obvious fucking. There was moments before that where we kind of had to, look a little skeptically, a little side-eye at it.
I mean, I know we recently went back and looked at his road to the gold medal, and controversial win on 2 accounts. His opening match against Cuba's Savan, you said that you didn't see him winning that fight at all, and many people watching did not.
I did not see him winning that fight. He won the fight 17-16. I thought he lost that fight, not by a wide margin. It wasn't an ass whooping, but Savan won that fight.
And the controversial gold medal victory against the champion from Italy, the defending champion from 2008.
Camarelle.
So basically, it was a tie, and then for no reason at all, rather than going overtime, they were like, fuck it, Joshua won. You can read it. You can look it up. It looks exactly like that. The crowd booed. They were like, everyone was in confusion. They just kind of gave it to him. Most people thought the other guy won. So in 2 cases, he got kind of gift decisions.
It's fucked up, man. This is not to take away from other things that AJ has accomplished. He's accomplished amazing things. But I think people are trying to look and see this untouchable champion. He's not untouchable. There's 4 or 5 guys deep in this division that can really, really test Anthony Joshua right now.
And let's not forget, the Dillian Whyte and the Dominic Breazeale fight were both when they were both up-and-comers. They weren't them now. They're both better fighters now. So the victory looks better, but it's not the same. And then Klitschko, he's 40 and had just came from being dominated by Tyson Fury. And Charles Martin was never a real champion. So you can question his biggest wins, and then when you see him against Carlos Takam and you see him in these other fights where he looks challenged, it totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
He's good, but not untouchable.
Meanwhile, Joseph Parker, he's got the win over Hughie Fury, who we think is going to be hot shit later on, but he's just impressed us every single time. Are you willing to take this risk? Are you willing to go with Joseph Parker for your pick?
There's a lot of money on this. Anybody who I respect in boxing says this is 50-50. So you got Virgil Hunter. He said that if he had to pick, gun to his head, he'll go Anthony Joshua, but Parker has a hell of a shot. They asked Kell Brook. Kell Brook's like, Joshua's my man, it's my boy, we train together, I have nothing but the utmost respect, but this is a 50-50 fight. Parker has a hell of a shot at winning this fight. The opening... Joshua opened 11-1 favorite over Parker. At this point now, it's about closer to a 4-1 favorite. The money right now, a lot of people are putting money on the round. Most people are predicting the 6th and the 7th round is the favorite for a knockout by Anthony Joshua Parker. But Parker's never been stopped. He's got a granite chin. I don't know if you've seen the Wild Samoans. I don't know if you've seen the head shriekers, but they have hard heads in Samoa. They don't get knocked out.
Oh, I've seen plenty. Oh, yeah. I've watched plenty of tape on the Wild Samoans trying to scout them for fights.
Yeah. So, but Parker has shown a questionable chin. And one thing, they interviewed David Price, who's fighting on the undercard. And he's picked Parker because of Joshua, because he said Joshua has a weak chin.
Ooh, boy. Doesn't that sound so reminiscent of what they were just saying about Deontay Wilder, though?
It does.
So you got who has this? Maybe Joseph Parker does finally have this granite chin. There's so many people we've said this guy has a granite chin at heavyweight. This guy can't be rocked at heavyweight. Eventually, everybody starts getting knocked out. These are heavyweights. They hit the hardest.
Also, for this fight, Parker actually trained with Tyson Fury. Interesting.
Even after he beat Huey.
I guess. I mean, they trained together. Even when they were hyping up the fight, and they were like, "It's rumored that Tyson Fury is going to come into the ring after the fight and challenge the winner," and he just kind of started laughing. I mean, I don't know if it was just kind of like sparring or he actually trained with him, but he just started laughing it off, like, "Oh yeah, that's my boy. He's silly. He's 100% going to do it. Like, of course he's going to do it." God damn it, Tyson Fury. It kind of seemed like there was a bond there from when they trained together for this fight. Like, it seemed like there was like a friendship more than just, a respect of another athlete. I'm going to tell you right now, Mr. Jesse Rivas, I really respect your footwork on this question. Who do you think wins this fight? You're in a Philly shell right now. You're trying to give me the defense. I'm going to put you on the, put your nuts on the table. Who do you think is going to win? I'll give mine first. How about that?
I think Anthony Joshua does win this fight. I think he wins it inside of 10 rounds. I think it is an amazing fight. But I think we really end up seeing a lot of holes in Anthony Joshua's game, and I think it sweetens the Wilder versus Joshua pot.
If it's exciting, I give it to Parker. If it's boring, I give it to Joshua. But I feel like people are underestimating the speed of Parker. Parker's not pretty, but he does have speed, and he does have hand speed. So I have to give it to Parker. It's going to be tough because it's going to be a size advantage, but I'm going to give it to Parker. I'm going to put my nuts on the table, and I'm saying Joseph Parker becomes a champion and ruins everyone's dream of a Joshua Wilder unification fight.
God damn it, Joseph Parker. How dare you? You mentioned David Price. David Price is also fighting that night. He is taking on one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world, Povetkin. Tell me about this fight, Jesse.
Wow. So, David Price is who Anthony Joshua should have been 5 years prior. Or, actually, should have been Anthony Joshua 5 years prior to Anthony Joshua. He was the youngest ABA super heavyweight champion in the amateurs. He has notable wins. He beat Tyson Fury in the amateurs, but he has a questionable chin, and we know it. Losses to Byrne and Hellenius in the amateur show that he always never really accomplished what everyone expected. He was the captain of the 2008 Olympic team. He was favored to win gold. He got bronze. He actually lost to the same guy who lost the controversial win to Anthony Joshua, and he beat out. So he became the ESPN Prospect of the Year, beating out Deontay Wilder, Keith Thurman, Sergey Kovalev, Carl Frampton, and the Charlos.
Jesus Christ! 2012 was a great year.
By the way, that was a killer year. Like, that was an insane year. But he was picked as the Prospect of the Year. Then ends up getting upset twice by Tony Thompson. So Tony Thompson was, he was a world level contender, but he wasn't like a champion.
No, he was not elite. He is not who Prospect of the Year guys lose to.
Yeah, he's who Prospect of the Year get tested with, and then end up winning.
Yeah.
But he lost by KO in both cases in matches where he was winning. Then he got completely dominated by Tieper, who is this kind of unknown German fighter. He was he was 14-0. There was not a lot of tape on him. It was for the vacant European title, which is basically like, here's a free title, David Price, don't fuck this up. And then he gets knocked out in 2 rounds. And then he loses to Christian Hammer in a fight where he stupidly brawled. There was no reason for him to get into a firefight when he was, doing really well boxing, and ends up getting knocked out. So the biggest problem, he's got a great offense. I think it's a chin issue.
It sounds like, this is a guy staring down 4 knockout losses. That's a big problem at this division. I said nobody has a great chin, but you can't have a bad chin for sure. You have to walk in the door with at least okay.
Part of the reason he's getting this is because he's brilliant at color commentating. He's great on the mic. He's super smart. He knows a lot about the sport. So just him breaking down with new attention comes to the heavyweight division. He's kind of become like a Paulie Malignaggi in the UK, where Paulie's kind of resurrected his career as a commentator on Showtime. David Price has kind of had the same kind of thing going on with him outside of the sport, and he's a great fighter. He just doesn't win the big one, and the way he could jump ahead is to fight the number 3 heavyweight in the world, Alexander Povetkin, who's done nothing but win his entire life. He's been a successful kickboxing champion. He was the European champion, Baltic champion, the juniors amateur champion, the world champion. Then at 21 said, you know what? Let's try a different sport. Went to boxing, became a 2-time European champion, world champion, gold medalist. In the pros, within 15 fights, was already the number 1 contender for the world title. This we see with, guys like Rigondeaux and Lomachenko, but back then that was unheard of. He beat Larry Donald, Chris Bird, Eddie Chambers, Ruslan Chagaev, Marco Hook, Asim Rahman, Mano Achar, Takam, he knocked out Takam, Marius Wach, you name it. Like, any name in the last 10 years in heavyweight that's not Vladimir Klitschko has lost to Povetkin. But, of course, we've had the controversy in the last 2 years. which is 2 failed drug tests. The fight against Wilder got canceled, and the fight against Gilpin got canceled. So, do you think this PED abuse, do you think he was always on it, or do you think it's a case where now he's older in age, and that's what he was trying to do to keep up with the young guys?
It's really tough to tell. It's impossible to know unless you know the guy. I'm sure it definitely got worse as he got older, but as a general rule, if you test positive later in your career, I'm going to assume you did it earlier as well. I call it the Anderson Silva rule. You know, there's no reason for me not to think he did it. All he's done is win, and then all he's done in the last 2 years is test positive for steroids. I bet one has to do with the other.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those fights that before the 2 positive drug tests, you knew he was a bad guy, but you didn't care like we do about Kovalev. I mean, we know Kovalev's not a good guy, but we still root for him. After the 2 failed drug tests, he's become the most hated heavyweight, and he's going against one of the most beloved heavyweights. This is the true underdog story. Can the guy who can't win the big one fight the big, scary monster who can't fucking lose? We can't get him off the top 10. He's been whooping everybody, but he's a bad guy and a cheat. Can the good guy, can David beat Goliath?
No, probably not. Is that the question? I don't think so. I would be amazed to see David Price win this fight. I think Povetkin is going to knock him out.
I mean, the odds say 8-1. Povetkin is the favorite, 8-1. But this is a fight. This is his first fight in quite some time. Since 2012, the first time since 2012 he's fought outside of Russia after 2 failed drug tests in the UK, in the home country of David Price. So I would assume that they're testing him out the ass. Do you think that's going to play a role?
Well, sure, they should test him out the ass. That's where the steroids go in, so that's the natural place to test. I think for his first fight outside of Russia in 2012, I do think that makes a big difference. You know, more than anybody else, the Russians fight better in Russia. Nobody quite has that home advantage the same way they seem to, in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying crooked judging or whatever. I really mean they fight up to a very high level inside their own country, and they don't tend to travel as well. I think it is it tips the scale a little bit back towards David Price for sure. And he is absolutely should be getting tested around the clock for steroids.
I mean, I'm excited to see him jump ahead. You know, I just want to see him contend for a world title. I just want to see him there, and I feel like most of the UK wants that as well. And I mean, this is a great heavyweight landscape. I'll put the top 10 on here. I don't know if you want to go through like the rankings a little bit and see what potential fights you have, but it's an exciting division. It's a very healthy division. So, I mean, we have Joshua is number 1, Deontay 2. We got Joseph Parker, Povetkin. If Povetkin wins cleanly and he's still a contender, I mean, I'd love to see him there against somebody. We have Ortiz. You know, he'll be a good test for somebody. I wouldn't necessarily think he's going to win a title anymore. He's a little bit up there in age.
That's where the gate starts, though, right? Is with Luis Ortiz. That is where the gate starts.
Yeah. Dominic Brazil, Jarrett Miller, Jarrell Miller.
Jarrell Miller, Big Baby Miller at number 9.
Yeah, the only person he's ever lost to in a kickboxing fight was the Crow Cop, and he's undefeated as a boxer. And here's some fun fights. You have Oscar Rivas from Colombia, who's a crazy knockout puncher, undefeated, not related to me, but same last name. That's actually my dad's name, which is weird. Junior Faw, who's a great prospect. He's the guy who used to always whoop up on Parker in the amateurs. So if you look at why he didn't make it to the Olympics or why he didn't win certain championships, Junior Faw was always the reason why. Junior Faw is a badass Samoan from New Zealand. Huey Fury's the top contender. David Price, and we have Tony Bellew in there too.
Sure, he could come up anytime. The captain of the team, a fat body, is gonna keep the train rolling, keep the gravy train rolling. I love it.
He's fighting again at heavyweight, having the rematch with David Hayes, so they're still in there.
Of course he is.
So, which of these combinations would excite you to happen? Are there any fights within these guys that you want to see kind of happen, or maybe one of these guys kind of step up and contend against the winner of Wilder versus Joshua? The winner
of Wilder versus Joshua? Ooh, okay. Looking up and down this list, I would love to see Dillian Whyte versus maybe Luis Ortiz. And if Dillian wins that, it could be him. Dominic Breazeale, you could slide up in here with Povetkin or Pulev. That would be great. Even Breazeale versus Big Baby Miller would be cool. Big Baby Miller, he's maybe another guy who could creep up the rankings a little bit. Takam is not as exciting to me. Those are the fights that when I look at this list, I get pretty excited. And I think you could probably plug Povetkin in there, especially if it's Povetkin versus Wilder.
I know David Haye is a little bit up there in age, but I'd love to see David Haye versus Dillian Whyte.
Ooh, that's a great fight. I'd watch that. And then
I'd love to see a rematch between. I'd love to see like a pro fight between Junior Fa and Joseph Parker. I think that'd be a great fight. I want to see who the baddest among is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. Junior Fa, for all you're saying about him, let's get him up here. Let's see what he has to do. And Huey Fury could come in and he could be, the missing Fury brother that we've always been looking for. You can start plugging him in against some of these tougher guys, see what happens.
I didn't put him here, but Tyson Fury. Do you think he could come back and actually be a contender? I mean, he's looking in shape.
I doubt it. After this much time away with a guy who is, there's Miles, there's Jim Miles, and then there's drug Miles. And that guy has drug Miles on him, which ages you like...
he's only 28.
Yeah, man, but he's drugs 55. He's, I'm not feeling it. You give me Tyson Fury, I'm not feeling it. I think he's done his body a lot of disservices over the years. I think he should be, quite honestly, if he's serious about his career, he should be ashamed of himself for what he's done to his body over the years. That's his machine. That's what he operates with. And suddenly he can't. He has to get back into shape. You should never be that out of shape if you want to consider yourself a championship-level athlete. So I'm out on Tyson Fury.
And looking at Tyson Fury's last couple of fights, I think he would have beat Joshua.
I could definitely see him beating Joshua, yeah. After the Joshua I've seen this week, Joshua versus Fury is not the fight that a lot of people would expect.
Yeah. Now Wilder, I think, would beat Fury. I think that's how that would play out.
Man,
I see Fury and I see Joshua versus Wilder 50-50.
How do you see Wilder versus Parker?
I see Wilder winning. I think maybe it's because the spectacular knockout versus Luis Ortiz kind of has it's still stuck in my mind, and I'm forgetting the fact that Ortiz was winning that fight. But I kind of view Wilder as the number one heavyweight.
I have to agree.
Dillian Whyte would beat him though. I think Dillian Whyte's body shots are ridiculous. That's middleweight quality body shots.
This might easily be recency bias because who do you love the most? Deontay Wilder. Oh, except for that other guy who just fought. The only guy you like more than the guy that fought 2 weeks ago is the guy who fought last week.
Yeah, I think it might be that. I think it might be some bias. I'd love to see that fight.
That would be a fantastic fight, I totally agree. Is there anything else about this heavyweight landscape that you want to dig into?
No, but I am excited. This is the first new guard versus new guard fight. I mean, every other fight I could think of is old guard versus old guard. I mean, it was Joshua Klitschko. It was Wilder Ortiz. It was Dillian Whyte versus Lucas Brown. We're finally going to get the first new guard fight. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. I've been tuning into everything Sky Sports has been putting on YouTube. I mean, I saw the press conferences. I've been watching the hype up, the face-to-face. They had the live workout today. They had the media workout, which I see no point in. But, hey, I mean, people tuned into it, so whatevs. It's crazy.
It's a crazy week. I can't wait. This whole boxing weekend is going to be so centered around the heavyweight division. It's going to be a joy. Put yourself over, Mr. Jesse Rivas.
Follow me on social media, J Rivas Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. And follow me on Facebook, Jesse Rivas. And I will be performing at Summers this Friday at the big showcase at 8 p.m. Catch me if you're in Arlington. And anything else?
I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at BadTweetus, Joseph M. Gilpin on Instagram. Pro Fight, April 14th. Please come on out. It's going to be a blast at the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus. Tickets are available at cagetix.com. For everybody out there, thank you for subscribing to the show. We'll be back next week here on The Block.